My people, what's going on? Hope everybody is having a fantastic day. It's actually 7:22 in the morning Central Time over here. I'm getting ready for the markets, but I wanted to make this video for you guys as a follow-up to our last one. So as I told you guys, I want to talk about the 7 deadly trading sins to avoid as a trader. With a new year starting, we want to review for Christmas, right? All the amazing things that we do to get ourselves in trouble. We've all been there before, and if we can work on them, we can really progress fast and hit the new year running. Yesterday, we talked about the first deadly sin, which was revenge trading. If you haven't seen the video, go and check it out before you watch this. Now, the second one, boy, this one gets me all the time too, especially when I was new, is gambling. Gambling is really one of the worst things you could do as a trader. See, as traders, we need an edge in strategy to beat the people that we're playing against. Think about what trading is or what the markets are. The markets are filled with the smartest, most well-capitalized, and most crooked people really in the history of the world. So how can you beat people that have that? Well, you can't just go in and wing it, right? Remember, they're the smartest. They got more money. They got more experience than you. How can you beat somebody at their own game? Well, the only way you can really beat them is by having an edge, right? An edge in strategy, an edge in discipline. You can have an edge in your work ethic, your relentless desire to compete and get better. Those are edges that you can count on. But what happens when you trade without an edge? When you just get into a trade to get into a trade. We know what we're talking about, right? That lotto trade. I'm going to throw a few dollars at this one, see what happens. I'm just going in real small, no big deal, right? Or I always talk to my students, I'll talk to someone like Henrik or Carrie, and I'll be like, why did you do that? And they'll be like, it was just a starter position. I'm like, oh, so you had no edge. You were just taking the trade to take it, huh? Right? And we all do that. Gambling is addictive by nature, and one gamble trade begats another. Gambling is when you're trying to make money without an edge. I don't want to say just pure without effort. I think gambling is when you're trying to make money without an edge, without a trade plan. Remember what a trading setup is. A trading setup is a list of conditions that must trigger before a trade is taken. Think about what that entails. So before you take a trade, you have to have a trade plan, right? A strategy, a battle attack on this one. Well, if you're not doing that on every trade, right, most likely it's just a shot in the dark, right? A piss in the wind. And so that's a gamble trade. When we trade without an edge, we don't know if we really have a probability of winning or losing, right? We're just kind of taking a guess. And we know what happens in trading when you take a guess. Losses start to pile up. So really be careful with that. Gambling is when you take a trade based on hope and greed, right? You're on Twitter and you see somebody else, right, saying, oh, I made $50,000, made $100,000. I shorted this at $10 and added more than 9 and pure profit, 100 grand, right? All these guys are just full of shit, right? Like, it's just so easy. Like, you're just running around making $100,000 days, putting it on the tweeter, right? And what happens, though, is, you see people like that, and you're like, look at this guy. He looks like a loser, right? He's 22 years old. He's got a Porsche and a Lambo and all this. And you're like, shit, I better get some size into my next one, right? So your next trade, you're seeing other people talk about it. You're in a chat room, and you're seeing people talk about it. And next thing you know, right, you've got that hope and that greed because you're seeing this jobber next to you saying he made all this money. So what happens with you? You're like, rather than trading the 200, 300 shares or 500 shares or whatever you can do based on your risk management profile and your account size. You end up going a little bit too big in a trade that you don't have an edge, and next thing you know, right, you're in that game of hope, greed, despair. Next thing you know, you're in your bedroom watching Netflix, right? Watching romantic comedies, saying, I'm not going to gamble anymore, right? But that's what happens. It happens to all of us. And a lot of times how it starts, and this happened to me a lot when I was new, it would start because I'd take a gamble trade and I actually hit on it, which I think is the worst thing that can happen, right? You know, you throw like 5,000 shares at some dumpster fire of a stock, and it actually works, and you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good about myself right now. Let me just take that 5,000 shares and make it 10,000 shares. Make double the money. We'd be driving Lambos in no time, right? No time, showtime. Next thing you know, maybe it works again. But now you started a precedent that you think this works. Your behavior has been given a positive feedback on negative behavior. Well, guess what happens on that third trade? Man, that was ugly. But, you know, I mean, I'm still 2 for 1. Next thing you know, throw out another gamble trade, and you're like, whoa. But now you're down some money. So what happens when you're down some money? That's when the gambling really starts, right? Because now you're down money and the despair kicks in and you're like, whew, I gotta get my money back. I'm gonna take this trade again. And now you're hammering that same stock over and over. It's like you're hammering the stock trying to will it to go up, right? Like, come on, you owe me, right? You owe me. I had my life mapped out. I was about to be driving Lambos, and now I'm not. I'm back at Taco Bell. My mom's picking me up from work in her Chevy Astro van, and lo and behold, here I am searching on the internet for chat rooms to validate my position, my gambling, so I can get into more junky stocks and start this cycle over and over. And we don't want that, right? We don't want to work at Taco Bell too long. We all got to do it at some point. We definitely don't want to be 30 years old, having your mom pick you up from there, all because you gambled on some dumpster fire of a stock and you did not trade without an edge. Gambling is when you're not trading a system that you can use on a consistent basis. So what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to duplicate what you do, right? Can I duplicate my strategy over and over and over and over? See, when you're just kind of sashaying around, right, taking trades, right? Ooh, this guy in the chat room's talking about this one. He's really sharp. Ooh, this guy in the tweeters talking about this one. He's really sharp, right? And you're just kind of like running around, drawing some line. You draw a couple. I love how like people draw a couple squiggly lines on their chart, right? And they're like, there you go, I got an edge. No, that's not stuff that you can duplicate. This is what you can duplicate. Have you guys ever read a cookbook? Opened a cookbook? Well, what happens when you open a cookbook? And say you open the cookbook and there's a recipe for baking a cake, right? Notice how inside the cookbook, it's very specifically listed out every single ingredient you need to have to bake this cake. It's also listed out every single step from step 1 to completion, what you got to do to get that cake going, right? To make it that delight. But what happens if you miss pieces of your recipe? What happens to your cake? All of a sudden, it don't taste like your mama's cake, does it? Now it tastes like your cake, and that's not good, right? A trade is the same way. You've got to have, right, a recipe for each trade. See, a recipe you can duplicate, right? Because it's written in stone, well, paper, but it's written down. And then you duplicate it, and then you duplicate it. But guys, this is the beauty of trading. What happens when you open a recipe in a cookbook and you follow that recipe 100 times? Do you need that cookbook anymore? Are you sitting there opening it going 2 pinches of salt, right? 2 tablespoons of sugar? No, you're just doing it now. You own that recipe. And now once you own it, all of a sudden, right, you can say, oh, I'm going to put a little twist to this, I'm going to put a little twist to that, and you start really making it your own, right? You start adding upon the recipe that you practiced 100 times, and now all of a sudden, you know what happens? You're a chef. It's my dish, right? Your friends come over, you're like, ooh, I'm going to bake you my special dish, right? All of a sudden, you're not telling them you took that from a cookbook because you practiced it, you've added stuff to it. Now it's your dish. And that's how trading is. How can you make trading yours? What's your dish? So you want to follow and learn a strategy. And then you want to practice that strategy. And then over time, what will happen is it'll start to become your own. And you'll start to add a little bit of twist, a little bit of flavor to it. Remember that gambling is when you're not learning real trading rules that successful traders use. The best way to learn is to take a trader like myself or somebody else that you really trust, that you admire, and learn what they do, and then start adapting it to yourself, right? Make that recipe yours. That's going to really, really help. How to avoid this type of stuff, right? Number one is to use risk management rules and stick to it, right? You know, give yourself some outs. Like, okay, if I take this trade and I lose on it, I'm going to give it one more shot if the situation presents itself, right? Or, hey, I can only lose X amount of dollars on this type of trade. So like for me personally, I have different risk parameters. If I have an ORB breakdown, I am allowed to risk more on that type of trade than I would if I was trading a small cap breakout. Why? The probabilities in my stats, the data, my stats tell me that I trade one at like almost a 70% win ratio, where the other one, I'm frankly under 50%. So where do you want to have more risk, right? The ones that give you the probability. Get a journal, use a trader view, use Excel. You know, we've got templates. I got templates for this stuff too, if anybody needs it. Only enter the best setups on daily and intraday time frame. Remember that when you're trading, it's alignment of multiple time frames that becomes so important. Remember that there are traders trading on 60-minute time frame, 30-minute time frames, 15-minute time frames, 5-minute, 1-minute, daily. You see what I'm saying? There's different people trading different time frames. So what happens when they're all competing against each other? Well, people are looking at different levels of resistance and stuff like that. And so what looks like a breakout on one ends up being a dud or a short on another. And so you got one group of people shorting it, one group of people long in it. Guess what happens? Against each other, stock goes nowhere, doesn't act the way you want. When you align on multiple time frames where you're getting right a breakout or a bounce on this time frame and the same on another, well, now the worlds converge and you're all trading together. You're on the same team, and that's nice, right? Know your entries and exits when you're talking about these gamble trades. Now, guys, I want to talk a little bit. So I want to dissect for each one of these sins a gamble trade that I took, all right? And show you kind of how my thought process was, but also how to get past it. So this particular day, this would have been on, I believe, the 16th or the 17th. I had a really nice day going. You know, I had $1,500 in gains in the morning. And, you know, I was thinking like, man, $1,500 in gains, it's just the morning. You know what I got to do? Man, I'm only $500 away from getting to 2,000. Right? I'm only $500 away from getting to 2,000. I just need one more trade to hit my goal for the day. Then I'm going to cruise around and do, right, what men like to do. And lo and behold, during that day, what ends up happening is like I'm in this PCG and I'm only $500 away from my goal, right? And the PCG ends up kind of, you know, I had made a ton of money shorting it the previous day. I was up $1,900 on that trade. So guess what happens? Guess what happens? I end up shorting it, and this thing pops down and goes right back up. And all of a sudden, my profit is wiped out on the trade. But that's okay, right? I just got out for a small loss. But now, rather than being up $1,300, $1,400, I'm only up $1,000. So then lo and behold, right, this thing kind of breaks back under the VWAP. And so I'm like, man, I got to get that money back, right? I kind of end up taking the trade again. And lo and behold, it doesn't work out. All right, well, I'm kind of done for the day, I'm thinking. And then, man, this is where it really. So at the end of the day, I took some time off. I go to the gym in the middle of the day. I'm cruising around, watching a little TV. I like to watch Undisputed during the middle of the day. Well, guess what happens then? All right. Now this thing starts to creep out, and end of the day, it looks like a breakout, right? Now this stock hasn't been doing anything all day. It's not a long, it's not a short, it's not a nothing. But I'm sitting there thinking, man, like I gave away most of my profits. At this point, I'm only up like $500. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just take a shot at this. The day's gone, right? The day's over. I mean, I wasted all my profits. I'm only up $500. Next thing you know, guess what? I add it, and then it pops up a little bit. It comes right back down, gets stopped out. Lo and behold, right, rather than being up and having a nice day, say 1,300, 360, having a nice day, I had to take $1,600 of losses on this PCG, all for just a little twirl in the dark, right? A little bit of a gamble trade. And that's where we've got to stay away from, right? Like that last trade, you know, I'm still up 500, 600 bucks per day. That's pretty good. I'll pay the bills, right? But I took that last trade, that Hail Mary, that shot in the dark, thinking, man, this is going to be, right? This could get me back to 1,000. Never works like that. And so that's something you guys got to be really careful of. So guys, I'll be talking about these in depth on YouTube Live on December 17th at 8 p.m. for a full breakdown of these rules with examples of markets. I'd love to have you guys come in and watch what I do. Feel free to ask me any questions. If you guys like the video, give me a little thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever you want. I'm pretty open. And feel free to ask any questions you have, and let's get this party going. Take care.